Chapter 17. Lay off the mental terrorism. We more or less forgot about the old Harry business when we got back into town, because the real meat of the day was whether Mr. Devlin's conference had been a success, and whether Leroy had been able to convey some decent reasoning to the people who had come along. It was a bit of a surprise to see Leroy sitting disconsolate on the armchair, with a tin of red stripe in his hand. It's not often Leroy drinks in the house, so I said, "What's the problem? Everything okay? You look miserable." "Bunch of bleeding cowboys turn up, man. They ruin the whole thing for me." Whenever the word cowboys is mentioned, I think of the pub that Alf Speed took me into, full of characters with canvas sports bags, trying to sell all kinds of gear that's dropped off the back of lorries. "I give the speech, the reasoning. I'm comparing life in general to a game of darts, you see, where you can get double and treble numbers, that kind of thing. Like a treble number is winning a few shilling on the horses or meeting a fine woman, something like that. And the double number is, something good but every day, like eating jerk pork or playing a good football match. Then there's the ordinary numbers." "But what about the cowboys?" I said. "Well, everything was going well when this group of black people, calling themselves Liverpool Black Jihad, they turn up. Seemed like Mr. Devlin must have spread the publicity all over that city, man. Anyway, Liverpool Black Jihad turn up, and I know the lot of them, born and bred in the same streets and mess around with them as a kid, They turn up. At least they had dead decency to let me finish my reasoning, like. But it was question time, I invite questions from the people, And Mr. Devlin, he was acting as the man, the boss man, chairman figure, you see. Next thing is a bloody point of order, you see. It's one of these black jihad lot demanding a black chairman. How can a white person represent the feeling of the black people? How can a white person represent the feeling of the black people of Liverpool? We demand a black chairman. So everybody guilty like, seeing as most of the people there is white. And it's bloody Delroy McDermott who gets to be chair. Thing is, and I'm not trying to badmouth the guy, but he's only 2 years ago he in prison for pimping and drug business. Now he's a community spokesman. Not only that, he one bastard, I tell you, simple truth. And he never let anybody ask any question himself. McDermott asked the bloody question, and he answers the friggin' things himself. He talks longer than me, man. It's pure rudeness, man. Hey, listen, I said I'd take Evangeline along to school to listen to Claudia. So fancy taking a little walk that way? I had to get in for work anyway, so the four of us, that's Jellyman, Leroy, Evangeline and me, make our way along to the Eagle. Jellyman is holding Evangeline's hand, and it looks astonishing, the differences in size and appearance. Like a polar bear walking along with a swan or something. Mind you, Jellyman is a different colour to a polar bear, and Evangeline is a lot darker than a swan. When we get to the Eagle, the place is lit up like the headquarters of an American presidential campaign. A massive great banner with "The Eagle welcomes the black community, a new first for the city" written on it, was hanging over the front door. When we get inside, there's a programme of events on the notice board in the entrance hall. 2 p.m. Leroy Thompson. Race, colour, religion, ethnic group, class, gender, sexuality, disability and age in today's world with regards to the inner cities. A challenging talk from one of Liverpool's black leaders. 4 p.m. Anthony Okudo. The African Experience of Liverpool, a new approach to an old issue. 5 to 6 p.m, tea. 7 p.m, Claudia McPherson, Women and Families. A woman and mother speaks out. 9 to 10 p.m. dinner. 9:15 to 9:40 p.m. plenary. A general roundup of the day. Brought to you by Eagle Conferences. Director J. Devlin. I was very impressed by the programme, and especially with Leroy being billed as one of the leaders of the black community. Knowing Leroy, I'm sure he didn't suggest that. It was definitely a Devlin idea. I bump into Mr. Devlin, and he does look worried. Well, I'm wondering what could have brought about this change. He's looked the same with his red braces and glasses, but there was something in his face, something that set an alarm ringing in my mind. Then I noticed a letter in his hand. Anything wrong? I said. Just a crank, he said. You better take a look at this. I didn't have to read the letter. I knew what it was. I've been getting letters like those for months. Nothing to worry about. Some people got nothing better to do with their time than to try and make other people's existence miserable. Well, I suppose so. But I'm not happy. He threatens to kill me if this conference goes ahead. I reckon it's one of the guests. Since I've tightened up on late arrivals. Well, I suppose he might have had a point there. Now, since Mr. Devlin's changes, you couldn't book in unless you went through the formalities before 10:30 p.m. And this affected people like Jeff and his brothers. In fact, I hadn't seen Jeff for a while and wondered if he'd decided to take a letter out of old Harry's book to terrorise people. But that wasn't his style at all. Mr. Devlin, I said, I don't think it was a guest. In fact, I think I know who it was. Oh, well then, Ted, it would be very poor interpersonal skills on my part if I didn't take your opinion into account. To use a well-known phrase, spill the beans. Do you remember old Harry? What, the handyman? Yes. Well, I don't need to say any more, do I? Well, you do, actually. You most certainly do. Mr. Devlin, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that the writer of this letter is old Harry. I know for certain. Old Harry was one of the most trustworthy people that ever stepped foot upon the planet Earth. The idea is preposterous. That old Harry could have this type of obscenity in his mind is beyond belief. Do you know what he's calling the black community here? If I read the words out, this lot'd lynch me, he said, nodding at the conference members who were making their way to the hall for Claudia's talk. I'm telling you, Mr. Devlin, it was old Harry who wrote this letter, because he's been sending letters like this to me for months now, ever since you left the first time, when he got the sack. He admitted it to Jellyman, only today, in fact, when we went round to his house. I said, I'm sorry, Ted. I can't believe that old Harry would have anything to do with this sort of thing. It goes against all my training. You're told to be faithful to your gut instincts, and my guts tell me he's as straight as a die. You get me? I said I did because I couldn't take any more of the lecture. A soothsayer called Artemidorus warned Julius Caesar about the presence of a political conspiracy amongst opposition senators. He had named names and been totally ignored. Like him, I found myself telling the truth and getting no recognition for it. How was I to know, anyway, what the outcome would be? Then I see Jeff wander in with his Cockney friend, John Smith, the merchant banker. Hey, long time old see no... Oh, fuck's sake. Hey, long time old see no... Long time no... Fuck's sake. Hey, long time no see, old friend. Abscess makes the fart go under. Know what I mean? We whizzing up the apples and pears, or are we going to join the fun? As always, John Smith's mixture of Cockney slang and London accent didn't help for clear understanding. Apples and pears, stairs. You see me, old cocksparrow? Me and Jeffy boy here. We don't know whether to salve our consciences or soil your sheets, eh? I pretended not to understand the implication of his words, but informed him that they could stay provided they booked in before 10:30. And the conference, I said, was open to all. Oh, is it? Said Jeff. Because there's this bouncer on the door that won't let white people in. Says it's only for blacks. Well, it's not supposed to be, I said. Do you want to go? Claudia's speaking, by the way. I fished out Jellyman from the bar where he was having a snorter before getting involved in the conference himself. Once appraised of the situation, he said to leave it all to him. I followed him to the entrance of the hall, where there was a group of white people hanging around looking embarrassed and worried. But the door to the hall was blocked by a black man in a dinner jacket and bow tie. We got there just in time to see this man turn back a young white lady. What happened, brother? Said the man to Jellyman. Jellyman was a good 4 stone heavier and 3 inches taller than the bouncer. I'm not your brother, pal, and I don't want to be. Listen here, there's bad white people and good ones, just like us. You got no right to deny these people the opportunity to hear one of our women talk. If you insist on blocking the way to white people, I'll have to give you a compulsory vasectomy. Get my meaning, sunshine? And if you try anything, well, I didn't get a reputation for bending iron bars for nothing. Plus, I've got a friend who can bring a karate club here. Plus, I've got magical techniques as well. Ever heard of African hand, sonny? Hey, mister, I don't want no club foot, man. Sure, let the people in there. Yeah, they can go in. Listen, mister, don't do nothing, okay? So Jeff and John Smith were able to get into the talk. Not that it was a completely enjoyable experience. When we got in, there was some dispute between Claudia and the chairman, who, like the Roman general Sulla, was self-elected, as Leroy had pointed out earlier. He was dressed like some Nigerian chief in a bright orange robe, and even carried one of those little fly swatter things. What I'm saying, sister, is that chair must have rights over points of order, or points of information, and the brothers just made a point of information. Understand? He was saying. Claudia was looking angrier than sin. What's wrong with Mummy? Why is that man bossing her around? Said Evangeline. All I'm trying to say is that the issue is not confined to black people, said Claudia. But that's his sister. A point of order was raised a moment ago by the brother when he said there was an issue that was strictly confined to black people. Yeah, but black people aren't the only people who have children outside of marriage. Plenty of white people, Chinese people, in the same boat, said Claudia. Hey, sister, you might be right about that. But as far as this chair is concerned, you're out of order, and I'm making a ruling that you can't carry on with that line of thinking. Understand, baby? But Claudia stood her ground. First, chair, I object to the baby bit and the sister bit, okay? Second, I can say what I like. You can't actually. Chair says you can't. Democratically elected chair here. You know, unless... Hey, Delroy, lay off that rubbish, man. Leroy was on his feet now. I hate to say it, but this looked like trouble. I could see a couple of the heavies beginning to move towards where we were sitting, and before I could think, I saw a huge hand like a bear's paw slam itself down on Leroy's shoulder, and I thought the time had come. I looked again and I saw that the hand was connected to Jellyman, who was rising to his feet as Leroy was involuntarily sitting down under the pressure of the great man's strength. The unless being what, pal? Said Jellyman. I don't get your meaning, brother, said the bright orange chairman. Think I told your fancy friend in the dicky bow outside. I'm not his brother, and I'm not yours either. And the unless, to get back to the point, is that your ruling stands unless there's a challenge to the chair, which means another vote, which I propose formally. I'll do the honours if you like. Jumping Jehoshaphat. This looked like a constitutional coup, as massive in its impact here as it was in the reforms of the Tlst. Jumping Jehoshaphat. This looked like a constitutional coup, as massive in its impact here as were the reforms of the Cleisthenes in the 6th century Athens. Shove that up your holy war, I told Liverpool Black Jihad, mentally, of course. And then it all took place, as in a primitive parliamentary dream. Democracy in action. The vote took place, and thanks to latecomers, both black and white, the chair had to step down, and Jellyman took his place. Well then, Tiberius Gracchus, what do you make of that? This meant, of course, that Claudia was able to continue with her talk. And my admiration for this bunch of people went even further when I listened to what she had to say. It was total common sense, and didn't apply only to black people or only to white people. In fact, she pointed out, one of the strange things about Liverpool was that a lot of black children had white mothers, and that these white women were often the real victims, given that they were isolated in a sense from both communities. The point I'm making is dead simple. It's like there are families. Alright, and some of these families are single parent families, and they come from all kinds of backgrounds. Understand? The key issue is support. These families need support. Not just financial support, that's too simple. But human support. Real human warmth and understanding. Hey sister, you live in a friggin' dream world. You think Mr. Honky gonna help you out? Get active, baby. The person interrupting was short and what Mr. Devlin would call a Rastamulian. He was aged about 19, wearing an expensive leather coat and a gold watch that must have cost upwards of 100 notes. Claudia looked at this fella. I knew something good was boiling up in there. Hey, listen, sunshine, she said. There's a word in Jamaica for people like you, you know. Force ripe. You ever hear of that? Like you make a tomato or a cucumber, force them to grow. Force them to grow to such a size they got no text. Like you make a tomato or a cucumber, force them to grow. Force them to grow to such a size that they got no taste or texture, but big enough for market. You understand? That's you, pal. Experience of the world? Zilch. Knowledge of injustice? Zilch. Where'd you get your jacket from? Good decent work. And you talk to me about getting active, eh? Listen, boy, go home and get your sister, change your nappy, come back when you know what you're talking about. Ah, Claudia, make that force right boy a blush, Leroy shrieked as he pointed at her victim, who was sitting himself down like a sheep. Not that sheep have chairs, but meek like a sheep. Cast the speaker then. And now it was the bloke who had lost his position as chairman earlier. Whether she believes there's any point in dealing with the white authorities, which as we all know are riddled with constitutional racism and prejudice. I could hear someone say, cool question, Dilroy. Jellyman, now chairman, looked as if he was going to have to use his prerogative and reject the question. But Claudia shot to her feet. I'll answer that, she said, and I'll answer with this question. What other authorities are there, pal? We've got to live in a country that's run by white people, which means we've got to beat them at their own game, not stand there on the bloody sidelines jeering at everything, or waiting to become rich enough through music or sport or something. Anyway, you're a smart fella, member of this black jihad business. Now you tell me, where's the black lawyers, doctors, teachers? Tell me that. Because that's what our people need. And writers and leaders and black people who've done things, okay? Because we got a fight on. And I can tell you this, and I'll tell you another thing. Sometimes your best ally is the white person who lives in the same street, or the white teacher trying to help out. You ever go to the doctors and refuse a prescription because it's white man's medicine? You get run over, you're going to turn away the ambulance because it's driven by white people. Grow up, pal. And another thing, lay off the mental terrorism, alright? Or you might just lose the people you're trying to win over. Yeah, said Leroy. All very eloquent, sister. Should invent a new term. Anti-Tom, shouted ex-chair Delroy in response, followed by great cheers from his supporters. I have to admit I was enjoying myself more than a small cat enjoys licking cream from a saucer. It felt very good inside with all this stuff. If I'm an anti-Tom, you must be a farmer's field. Full of bullshit, pal. Steaming heaps of it. And I don't make a nice tidy living out of being a professional black person. I repeat my point, a simple one at that. People need to pull together, people need each other, and that applies to black people and to white. That's all I'm saying, and I'm not afraid to say it. Oh, very nice settlement, sister. What a picture of conformity. What a pleasant photograph of compromise, said the ex-chair, giving himself a rather grand flick of the fly swatter, Jomo Kenyatta style. He looked around after that one, as his buddies patted him on the shoulder, saying, "Cool, man." Can see you're interested in photography, pal, because all I get from you is negatives, said Claudia, smiling as she said it. Touché, said Leroy. More like pas de deux, said Jellyman from the chair. I declare this contest over, and victory to the woman in the red corner, Claudia. No more questions, please. Bugger off, said the ex-chair, Delroy, looking gloomy. And to show how good I feel as chairman, I declare a state of general rejoicing. Therefore, there will be a late bar, and the rest of the night can be spent getting to know each other. Yee-haw, said Leroy. I could see that even ex-chair Delroy, with his orange robe, his fly swatter, and his man-of-the-people appearance, was giving way a bit to a smile in amongst his buddies. And as I looked around, I caught a glimpse of Claudia's friend Nancy standing by the door. She was staring in my direction and giving me a look that would be described in books as steamy.